Your Excellency, distinguished guests and fellow colleagues, welcome to today's CLC Lecture Series. My name is Adeline and I'm from the Centre for Liveable Cities. The centre was jointly established by the Ministry of National Development and the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources in 2008 to distill, create and share knowledge on livable and sustainable cities. The CLC Lecture Series is one of the platforms through which urban thought leaders share best practices and exchange ideas and experiences. In today's session, we are very honored to have with us Mr. Rob van Gijzel, Mayor of Eindhoven, the Netherlands. Mayor Gijzel will share how Eindhoven has shifted its focus from laws and regulations to experiments and initiatives of its residents, businesses, research institutions, and other parties in civil society. He will also describe how cities can move towards humanized technology developed in collaboration with citizens. The presentation will be followed by a moderated panel discussion and a Q&A session with the audience, which will be moderated by Professor Teck, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Research Foundation. With this, let us begin the session by inviting Mayor Gijzel on stage. Mayor, please.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to be here and that you invited me to tell something about the developments of our city regarding to the smart city developments over the last couple of years. Maybe it's good that I start a bit about the history of the city of Eindhoven. Some of you are familiar with this history, but I presume not everyone knows exactly what happened. But we had, I started in the mid-90s, we had severe economic problems in, around 1995. The city of Eindhoven is the cradle of the Philips company. This year they will exist for 125 years. But in the 90s, a lot of labor went away to South America and Asia. And our DAF truck manufacturer, the second largest company in the city, broke down. And in the supply companies lost another 12,000 jobs. In 2 years' time, we lost a third of all the labor places in the city. And the city, we got it, well, maybe you have to tell a little bit. The city is a small city. The surrounding, including the surrounding, we're near 2 million. The city itself, 225,000 citizens. At that time, it was 180,000. So the labor places dropped down from 110,000 to 75,000. And now it raised again to 164,000 jobs. We did more than 90,000 jobs in nearly 20 years. And but we didn't know what we were seeing at that time. We lost a lot of labor, but now we can see that it was the first signal of a transition from a traditional manufacturing economy to a creative, knowledge, and a digital economy. But at that time, it was unknown for us. So we started with another approach. We want to overcome this economic crisis, and what we did is that we said we have to do something together here. And we invited the corporates, some of the corporates, and representative of the knowledge institutes and representative of some of the cities around Eindhoven and the mayor of Eindhoven themselves. I was not a mayor at that time. And then we started what we didn't know or came out later on as worldwide known, the triple helix structure. We worked together there with these three, the government, the knowledge institutes, and the entrepreneurs. And one of these scientists said, wow, what we are doing here is something like a DNA collaboration. We are undividable. This is a double string, this is a triple string, this is a triple helix. And that word went all over the world, but this was 1995. So this way of working, I always do like this triple helix was very important for us. We made an organization, the Brainport Development Organization. The name came later, but the development organization immediately was there. What we did is we said the governmental side put money in a fund, and we doubled it with European subsidy. And then we asked the entrepreneurs to make a committee together with the scientists, and other entrepreneurs could make some proposals to improve economy. And they were judged by this committee. And it was immediately successful. You could not make a proposal for your own company or corporate. You had to make measures for more general economic purposes. And then, well, it came out. We still are doing, this is very small nowadays, but at that time it was huge and successful. So the second one is, next to this collaboration at Triple Helix, is that we started around 2000 with what we call the Open Innovation Strategy. The Open Innovation Strategy is a strategy that has been found out by Henry Chesbrough, an American guy. And Henry Chesbrough said that huge corporates will not be able to do the research and development in the future anymore on the way they did in the past, and they will not find the financial resource to do so. And he was rather right. And when you look to the Philips company, when you look to the products, you can see that half of the products of the Philips company were not available in the market 2 years ago. That means that a life cycle of a product is 4, 5, maybe 6, 7 years. And then it has to be not an update, but a completely new product. That's quite expensive, especially now when we look to the high cost for research and development to get these new products. So Henry Chesbrough made a proposal for working together. And that's strange. It was unseeable on that moment that you are going to work together with your competitors in research and development, and we did. So you do only research and development sharing, and it's a pre-competitive phase, so the applications are coming later, and that you have to do on your own. Let me give you an example. I myself went to Samsung in 2009 or 2010, tried to invite them to come and join the research of Holst Institute on the high-tech campus in Eindhoven. And they were looking at me and they thought, well, this is a bit weird mayor that he is saying that we have to work together with Philips or other companies. And they were polite, but they were not really interested. And half a year later, there was a phone call that they would have a look. And now they got the largest research facility outside of Korea in Eindhoven. What are they doing there? Within Holst Institute, we do research and development on very thin film. This thin film is for Philips. They use it for medical imaging. And Samsung is now involved for foldable TV screens. But we are using it in Soliance for flexible solar panels. And a German automotive industry can use their thin film for the screen of the cars. There's a huge amount of data, and you can connect sensors and all kind of things. It's very expensive. It's very expensive. And to make the machine, we make the machine as well, where you can make this foil with, is very expensive. It's very complicated. So it's hard to do it on your own. And when you do it with other corporates, then you can share the investment money. You can share the people. You can share the IP. We got an intellectual property management bureau, so we know exactly what you are bringing in and we know exactly what you get out. We share the requirements, like, for example, clean rooms and that kind of things. We share the risks when something is going wrong in this technology and you have to bear it on your own. That's quite expensive. So you can share the risk of research. But the most important thing is because of your speed up your processes, you can be in the market before your competitors. And so the life cycle of your product will be longer. That is the second one. We got a third one, and so the Triple Helix, the Open Innovation, I got a third and a fourth line. I will not tell you them all, but you can see that this was rather successful. And I tell you a little bit about what on international recognition gave. In 2009, the Eurocities organization, it's the organization of the European cities, they called it our way of collaboration is the best way of collaboration throughout Europe. In 2011, ICF in New York told us that we were the most intelligent community in the world. And Forbes came out based on OECD figures. When you look to the place where we introduced this open innovation, nowadays they're working more than 150 corporates there together. There are more than 12,000, near to 12,000 people there together. This is the source of our patent industry. When you look to the patent density, then you can see that we got, based on OECD figures, 22.4 patents on every 10,000 citizens. And San Diego in California, on the second place worldwide, is 8.9. We 22.4 and they 8.9 worldwide. So this is something special, the open innovation. And then, well, there's some more awards, but I will not tell you that. I will skip it. Then this time, and then I come to smart cities and smart society. This is a real disruptive time. Let me give you some examples. World's largest taxi company owns no taxis. No chauffeurs, no cars. It's Uber. The largest accommodation provider owns no real estate, Airbnb. The largest phone companies own no telco infrastructure, Skype and WeChat. World's most valuable retailer has no inventory, that's Alibaba. Most popular media owner creates no content, that's Facebook. The fastest growing bank has no actual money, Society One. World's largest movie house owns no cinemas, that's Netflix. And largest software vendors don't write the apps, and I talk about Apple and Google. The world is really disruptive. Not only when we talk about technology, but it is societally, the society and the government, it are disruptive, really disruptive times. So there is something that is really going on, and I have to explain what had happened in our city. We were working in this Brainport area. This name was given by the Dutch government in 2005. We were working over the last 15 years with programs. We have chapters. It's a chapter about basics, it's infrastructure mainly. We talk about people, it's about labor market, education, and that kind of things. There is a chapter about technology, what kind of technology do we need? And there is a chapter about business and our international program. So we were sitting there together with the board of the foundation, talk about these 4 chapters and what is necessary to do. And then we made a 5-year program. And a second time we made a 5-year program. And a third time we tried to do so. But then really times changed. We still have these programs, but we added something. And then I'm going to explain how we did it. What is very important is to see, we call it, by the way, we call it cluster communities, what's coming on. It's very important to see what's going on in the world. In Europe, 80% of the people will live in the cities. Worldwide, it will be 70%. Well, and you will be 100%. But worldwide, a lot of people will go to the city. And that means, and that's because of the dynamics of the city, their connection you can get, the serendipity you can find, all kind of social things. And that gives us as local government a huge assignment. When so many people are coming to our cities, what do we have to do on education, on housing, on health, on all these things? But that's not all. Because all our systems, looking to mobility, looking to energy, sewers, water, whatever, all our systems necessary to make a city livable are outdated. So we not only have to make space for new people, but in the meanwhile we have to renew all our systems. And that's a huge assignment. And I'm very much sure that we cannot do it top-down. And top-down in our country means from the national government to the provincial to the municipalities. It will be impossible, and I will kind of explain you why it is impossible. And it's in nearly all the countries that it is impossible. Maybe Singapore is a little bit different because it's a city-state. But in our case, it's impossible. So we have to do it more horizontally. And the main reason for doing this horizontally is that what I see until now, and I will explain it later when I talk about the United States, what I see until now is that there are many cities saying about themselves that they are a smart city. Tens of thousands of it. And the only thing they are doing is bringing in technology. But I want to see technology for the people. I want to see that technology is improving the life of people, that it must be humanized on a humanized scale, on a human scale. So it's impossible to do that top down. We have to do it together with the people. So, and it must be circular, of course. We have a planet as well. and we must be very careful. And we are doing right. We are doing, it's going okay, but we have to do it even better. What you see is, I don't know if you're familiar with Songdo in Korea and with Masdar in the United Arab Republic. There is a city that's full of technology. And the people don't want to live there because technology is controlling their life. Instead of their life is supported by technology. That's the other way around. So you see that it's very hard to organize that it's not only technology. And that is why we do it with co-creation. So let me tell you why it is necessary to do it on this meso level. Meso level is not the macro level of the national government. Meso level is the level of the cities where you can bring all the stakeholders together. All the stakeholders together. The entrepreneurs, the Knowledge Institute, the local government, the housing corporates, the people of them, the care and cure institutes, all together. That's the meso level. It's the level where you can be in contact with each other, where you can make some agreements together, where you can talk together. And it's not only that the governmental side is saying, well, this has to be done. And I'll give you an example. When Obama is going to undersign an open trade treaty with the president of, for example, China, and it would be here, and there would be two agreements there, and both are signing this agreement. What do you think will happen? Nothing. Nothing. There will be a lot of cameras. There will be newspapers next day. When does something happen? When the entrepreneur from New York is going to do something with the entrepreneur in Beijing. When the University of, well, let's say St. Louis is going to do something with the University of Shanghai. When the local governments are going to deal with each other and organize. This is the level of the real life. It's within the cities and it's between the cities. And national governments are not organizing the real life. They make it possible that we can act, but they are not organizing it. So this is, as far as I can see, well, this will be the centuries of the cities. When you look to Europe and the United States, you can see that 2 centuries ago, it was the century of the national state. France, Italy, Germany, the Netherlands, the United States. I do not know exactly how it was in Asia, but probably it will not differ a lot. It's the century of the national state. And then the last century was the century of the supranational institutes. It's the Bretton Woods, IMF, World Bank, United Nations, the European Union, the Asian, etc. And because of the fact that our society is disruptive and the complexity is going on, and there has been crossovers, we have to make crossovers. It only can be done on the meso level. So this will be the century of the cities. And that is something we have to be aware about. You cannot do it as a city alone. So this will be the century of the cities globally. Oh, did I? Oh, what's the problem?
Can I use the...
Now it's gone.
No.
Now I'm not for the Eindhoven anymore.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Wat is er aan de hand? Oh, ja, ik moet natuurlijk wel even mijn papieren kwijt. Okay. So, when the world is changing that heavily, and the government doesn't have its instrument anymore, I'm going to explain you why. Why this? Of course, you understand that on micro level, it's just the corporate or the government itself. It's very difficult to make connection when you stick to yourself. I've been member of the Dutch Parliament for 13 years. I did a lot on legislation and debates. But I can tell you, when we did a debate about legislation, about a law, on the moment we agree with the law, it was outdated. Because a legislation, we make laws with the knowledge from that moment, and we are doing well. We try to do well. But we do not know what will be what will come up, what will future bring. So we don't know what kind of technology will be available that we should bring involved in this legislation. That means that legislation, and that's the tool of the national government, always look to history, always regards to history, and never to the future. And they are blocking future even. So national governments with regulations and laws are blocking the future, blocking innovation. That's something that is very hard to understand, but it's really true. So what we do is, if government is changing, if the world is changing so intensively, we have to do it as government as well. There will be an exponential economy, and the question is, how can we be a part of it? Well, that is something what I call with the horizontal way of working. Let me give you, to make it more concrete, let me give you some examples. I told you about these chapters and these programs, 5 years programs, but now we say we are going to organize, and now we're coming from smart city to smart society. We make platforms. For example, a platform on health. It's called Smart Living. On this platform, more than 80 stakeholders in our region are there active. Hospitals, doctors, nurses, care and cure institutes, health assurance companies, the citizens, elderly, youngsters, the government, designers, all kind of stakeholders are there. Housing corporates, they're all there. And they talk about what do we see together as the most intensive challenge regarding to health. Well, they discuss about it, and then they say, okay, there is someone who's saying, or some of them, I got an idea. I want to do something and to solve this problem. Who is going to join me? Of course, there's always the government involved, always. But you make a living lab then, so there's a platform, you make a living lab, and I give you a specific example. A couple of months ago, a representative of the Philips company said, okay, you as a government, we together, want to have these elderly people more independent, living in their own house for a longer period. What can we do? We are working on a device, but we do not know exactly how we have to handle this. Can we have a cluster community? So they said in this platform, can we make this to a living lab? So they were sitting together with several stakeholders, hospitals, doctors, elderly people, very important, housing corporates. And then I'm going to explain you exactly what happened. There is a device here. This device, you put your hand on, and then you immediately see the shortage of vitamins, minerals, the level of iron, the level of sugar, your blood pressure, and all that kind of things. And here's a device, there's a preparation coming out. And it solves your problem when you take the preparation. They are connected. And the elderly people don't want to use it. The elderly people don't want to use it. And it's great. And do you know why? In our system, until yesterday, before they get this device, there was a nurse coming by. And this nurse was taking your blood pressure and was getting out some blood for your sugar and that kind of things. But was giving you a cup of coffee as well, and a chat, and a cookie. And it's very important, especially when you are on your own as an old person. So this is social contact. And we found out that we have to do something different. And so what we did is we made a specific kind of digital solution we are still working on, but that they can get in contact. They could say, with who do you want to be in contact? Well, I want to be with my neighbors and with all other old people, or with friends from earlier times, or relatives. We make it possible. They were not digital connected. But now they are, and they find more connection than they ever had before, because now they talk and they say, well, someone can say, I'm ill, and you say, oh, I come by, I can help you, I'll do the shopping, or the other way around. So this device, in this way of thinking, in co-creation, we found out that we had to do something completely different. Philips would never have thought about this on his own. So that's something we did there together. Well, we got more of these kind of things, like we do in the nightlife streets, where we work together with the youngsters to get new technology there involved, but with their agreement on a specific way. Well, I'll give you the example. When I looked at the nightlife street, we got the largest nightlife street in the Netherlands. As a mayor, my toolkit is to bring in a lot of policemen and security and safety officers. And that is quite expensive. And you put a street in control and doesn't give a feeling of, well, a nice environment. So we asked the Technological University, Design Academy, the government is involved, the street owners, the bar owners are involved, the police is involved, the youngsters are involved. And then quite a lot of companies are involved. And then we ask, okay, what are we going to do? We call it design outcry. What can we do here? And then they came up with an idea. Maybe we change light here, because light has an influence on behavior. So when you bring in the light in the street, green and blue light, it gives you a calm environment. We give another smell as well. And when something is going wrong and someone is going to shout, then immediately there will be highlighted. There will be a floodlight of white light there. And when he's running away, we get the technological devices to follow him. So the police know exactly where this guy is. So running away, and this is detected by what we call sounds video. We have a video on sound. It's very special. And we do it with crowd control. And this is brought in together with the youngsters, and they accept it. They say, it's great what you're doing. There is a huge support. So we are doing a lot of this kind of field labs in our city. And then I come to the legislation again. I was in the House in 1998, the House of Parliament. I was there a representative of one of the largest party, and we were dealing about the public transport system. We made a legislation. It's called WP, and W is for law, WP 2000. It's still the existing legislation in the Netherlands for public transport systems and taxi. So, but I have to tell you, in 1998, I had heard about internet. I've never used it. So in this existing legislation, there is nothing that connects with internet or the digital world. Nothing. But it's still the existing legislation. And now, Uber came to my city with Uber Pop. And I said, okay, I want to look at it. So with the existing taxi drivers and Uber Pop, we are going to make a new system. Can we do this? And the national government prohibit this. Because they said, we've got a legislation. In this legislation, there is the necessary of to have a board computer. A computer on board. And you must, with smartphones, it's outdated. It's out, but it's in the legislation. So we could not do Uber Pop. And why do they say, are they so strict? Because there are 50,000 taxi drivers. They all invested 5,000 euros in a computer. And when we say, well, it's not necessary anymore, then they say, okay, you have to pay me half of it back. And that is 50,000 times 2,500. That's a lot of money. So the government is blocking, again, not only on the legislation, but it's blocking because of the financial reasons, the innovation. And the other one is, and that's even more concerning me, that the government is not having answers on new technologies. So what is already existing, then they can block it with legislation, but something new. I'm rather sure that Apple and Google are coming up within 2 years with a watch. They're already existing for your condition and that kind of things, where you can see your blood pressure and all kind of other things from your body. And that means that they can see at what time I took my first glass of wine, and if I took it, and how many I took, or liquor, at what time I went to bed, at what time I went out of bed to do a pee and go back again, at what time I went out of bed this morning, how many cup of coffees I have used. And this information is going to California, to their commercial side and to scientific side. The commercial side is using this kind of data for, well, commercial purposes. So you can sell it to an insurance company, a health insurance company. Wow, you have to look at it the way he is living. So they make a business case of it. And I cannot, there's no one who can provide it. No one. Because it's new technology and there's no legislation in a country that can block this development. So what are we going to do here? we have to stop this. We have to make this kind of data more public. That's the first one. And I would like to invite, for example, Google to come to my city and do an experiment so that we can join the commercial and the public interest together on a horizontal way. If we let them go, they only will go for the commercial side. So co-creation is very important. It's very important to deal with all kind of new developments. It's the world of Manuel Castells. I don't know if you know Manuel Castells. He's a guy from Spain living in the United States. And Manuel Castells wrote a book in the 90s about the network society. Now I'm coming to the United States, what you see there. There is something completely different when you compare it to Singapore and as well to our country. I spoke with Google, the representative of Eric Schmid, and with PayPal, Peter Thiel, with Tim Draper from the Tim Draper University, with Cisco quite often. And what you see is that they are saying, and that is in your case maybe incredible, but they really say it, that as a corporate, regarding to smart cities, we can make people healthier, live longer, it will be cheaper, we can provide energy on a cheaper and sustainable way, we can make the mobility systems better than you ever can as a government, and cheaper, and better for the people. And what they say, this whole range, they can tell you. And I saw that even Bill Gates was telling this 3 weeks ago from Microsoft. And he said, I can organize society better than the government can. And there is a proposal, and this is serious, in the United States, in California, there's a proposal of these huge companies that they say we want to have a society without a government. Without a government. Because you are blocking society. And that means, if you think about it, that means that, well, this vertical world of the traditional governmental side will be replaced by the Google stuff, who will organize society. The public interest is gone, the commercial interest is there and replaced. This will be not the answer, I'm sure about that. But they made this proposal. And what will happen then, that they will organize. Well, I found out myself, I've been quite often in Silicon Valley. When they talk about we can make people live longer and healthier, we can make a better public transport system, I can tell you, who has been here in San Francisco? Have you been in San Francisco? How many beggars do you see there? A lot. So what are they talking about improving society? It's improving society only for the upper 10, not the society itself. Because they're not interested in society, they're interested in money. And that's something completely different. This is what Cisco is doing all around. It's great that they are doing, that they are bringing all kind of new technology to your city, but the only aim is for them to earn money. And they are telling it, it's smart city. I'm interested in a smart society, where people are involved, where technology is humanized and circular. That's something completely different when you compare it to the American guys. So we need another structure of society and economy. And I would say it's blocked by the legislation. So I want to have, and I told it already to the Dutch government, I want to have, as a metropolitan area, the right to do experiments. And why do I want to do this so? Because we do not know exactly what the future will bring and what will be successful. Do you know what will be successful within the next 5 years? Do you know it? Who knows about future? So we have to find out. I can tell you future is not going like this, from A to B. Future is going like this. Mistakes, success, mistakes, success, mistakes. That's why we said in our local political program that we want to invent future and we accept failure. Because when we know on the forehand what will be successful, then we can immediately do it. But we don't know. We have to find out. So we have to do experiments. And to get these experiments, you have to do them horizontally. Because then you get the support of all the stakeholders in this way of thinking. When you're doing it as a government, well, you will never be able to make mistakes like that. And they will not accept it. So there is something that is very important to see, that if you want to experience future, then you have to accept You have to accept failure. But the main key is here, do we learn of it? Why am I saying this so fanatic? Let me tell you a thing about health. What I see is a lot of money that is lost. 95% of all the research on health is not successful. Only 5% is coming in the Lancet or the British National Journal, Medical Journal, the British Medical Journal. 95% is not published. But knowing that something is not working is just as necessary as knowing that something is just working. So you can stand on the shoulders on the research that is not successful. So you have to publish it as well. This is 95% worldwide. We throw it away. We throw it away. And that's the same in your city. We can learn a lot from each other about all kinds of experiments that are not successful. Worldwide, we have to exchange it. We have to learn from each other. And then I'm going to say something strange. I'm the mayor of the city, and I want to be out of control. Not on all the points, but certain on specific points, I think, well, okay, let them go. Let them go. Maybe it will be successful, and then we will be a front runner. Maybe not. But if I always want to know that I'm in control, then I will stop new developments where I'm not sure that it will be successful. That is a pity. This is about medical research and that kind of things, like I explained to you before. So what I have found out is, in the first place, when I became a mayor, it's 8 years ago, I wanted to be the smartest region in the world. The smartest region in the world. And then in 2011, in New York, they named us to be the most intelligent community. And we were, by Forbes, what I told you before about all these patents and the density. And then I thought, when I came back from New York, okay, we achieved this. But when I looked at the international ranking, we are in the top 3 cities worldwide with knowledge. Well, how much money do we earn with this knowledge? And then I found out that we are worldwide on the 13th place. That on the first place was a specific area in Korea. Tokyo was on the list. Switzerland, specific areas like Zurich, and a couple of areas in Germany, Boston, Cambridge, they were all above us. With less knowledge, they earned more money. That's strange. That's strange. So we improved our program, our business program, and we raised to the 6th place. But 1.5 years ago, I was in Nanjing, in Shanghai, invited by the Chinese government to do a lecture about the transition from traditional manufacturing economy, to a creative and knowledge economy. And then the Minister of City Planning and Rural Development was there, and he was talking about a 20 years plan. And then I thought, 20 years? 20 years, that's now 2035, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, then we talk about 1995. It all started in our city. We did hardly know anything about the digital world. Nothing. So how could I have planned society from what it is now in 1995? That's very hard. It's very hard even to do it 5 years, as it is not impossible. So then I thought, well, okay, and we must be smart, we must be smart, we must be strong, but the most critical thing is that we must be adaptive. We must be adaptive. And then, well, I said, well, smart and strong, adaptive. We changed our way of government, what I told you, with these platforms, that we can be adaptive with all these stakeholders. And it's not a written program. We are sitting there together with clever people who know what's going on in the world. And then they say, okay, we are going to take this development in which we can support each other. So we wanted to be adaptive. And then I found out a couple of weeks later that I was looking to, I thought it by myself, this smart and strong and adaptive, but it's Darwin. It's Darwin. It was Darwin who was saying that not the strongest or the smartest species will survive, but the most adaptive one. And that is exactly the same with cities. When you are not adaptive, when your procedures are not adaptive, when the people are not adaptive, when they're not together working and there's no support, then you will not be adaptive. And so you will not survive. And then your vulnerable points will come up. So this is something that, well, for me it's very important. So what we did is, I thought, what kind of new way of collaboration is necessary with this adaptive world? Well, of course, these platforms, but there is more. We have to implement the collaboration between the corporates. It's Industry 4.0. It's, well, the open innovation, but for the suppliers as well. We have to make an sectoral collaboration. You cannot do it by your own as a sector. So water, if you talk about health, then you talk about water, food, then you talk about high technology and that kind of thing. The fourth thing is that, this is 5 I's, that we talk about interdisciplinary approach. We brought in people we had never used before, designers. A designer is, traditionally, it's about the shape of something, but we used social designers. They look on a completely different way to the problems we are facing. The fourth one is to be inclusive, get people involved in the process of developing, and our international program. We have to join forces. Is there any large city in the world that is not suffering with a mobility question, with a mobility problems? Is there any city in the world that have appropriate educational system, appropriate, well, let's say, food supply system? Any city that is facing no problems? No. We all share more or less the same problems. So we have to learn from each other. And if we are all going to do our separate way, it's fine, but it's just like I told you with the open innovation, it will speed down our way of development and it speed down the solutions that we can introduce. Well, I'm chair of ICF in New York, and that's the Intelligent Community Foundation. We organize 400 regions, mainly technological-driven economies, and we are looking to the world in collaboration with each other. And there I thought, well, maybe we could look to the world on another way. There are 3 huge economic markets in the world. It's the North American NAFTA market, the European Union, and the Asian market, mainly dominated by China. And we looked inside of these markets, and you see that the most intensive relation between 2 countries is between Canada and the United States. The second one worldwide is between Germany and the Netherlands. And the third one worldwide is between Taiwan and China. So we were sitting there. I was sitting there with Mayor Holleran from the Toronto area and with Mayor Howe from Taipei. We were discussing this, and then we said, we have to collaborate. We can be friends because we are the smallest in these markets, but and we got a very intensive economic relation with the huge countries, so we can help each other to get market access via Canada to the United States, via Taiwan to China, via Eindhoven to the European market. We can change insights, we can change experiences, we can change talent, we can exchange research. We can do everything together, and we do. We do. It's very helpful. It's very helpful, this way of collaboration of these smart societies or smart cities. So when you see that we talk about smart cities, then, and this is the end of my speech, that I'm very much involved. I do not have the definite answers, but I see something, that the answers are not coming from the corporates itself. We have to bring in the public interest in this process. And that's, we have to join forces with the corporates, of course, in experience, but we have to do it together, and not only like the American model or another model. So it's about smart cities transferring to smart societies. That's the most important thing we try to do in our city. And in the meanwhile, it's a transition from the traditional manufacturing via the creative knowledge digital to a connective, adaptive, and big data. And the last point is, who will possess the data? And that's a very important question when you talk about smart society. If it's when the data is the ownership of the corporates, then I think the society will be lost. So we have to be careful together. And we can learn a lot about the challenges we are seeing and how we are going to help each other to get new developments and improving the life of the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Gijzel. Ladies and gentlemen, during the Q&A session, we ask that you please state your name and organization before asking questions or making comments. You may raise your hand and our staff will walk to you with microphones. I would now like to invite Professor Loh to join Mayor on stage for the moderated discussion and the Q&A. I will now hand the time over to Professor Loh.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, we should thank Mayor Gijzel for a most inspiring talk. You know, in my short career, and after all, we're all still very young, right? I have lived through some of the transformations that you see in Eindhoven. My first trip to Eindhoven was in the 70s. That was the heydays of Philips. And I went to, as a young student, to NetLab. Philips NetLab translated is Philips Physics Laboratory. And there I did some very fundamental work in magnetism, which goes into a disk drive. That's why I was involved with disk drive. And it was really inspiring when you go to NetLab, the sprawling campus, you know, most inspirational. Then I went there again in 1995, 96. And as you heard from Mayor, that was a time when they went through severe transition and transformation. I went there because of colleagues I have there who are good friends. Professor Kees Schuhammer-Immink, who is well known for his work on the CDs and the DVDs. They were in transformation, but it's something we did not see because Singapore was in the throes of industrialization, going high technology with the disk drives, starting our semiconductor industry. It was a different era for us and quite different from them. But we have transitioned from then on to something else. So has Eindhoven. I've been to Eindhoven many times, but the last trip I went there was 2.5 years ago. By then, NetLab was no more NetLab, but it was before. It is what you see today, truly inspirational. How they have transformed from a manufacturing industry, we started with Philips 125 years ago with the light bulb, to what it is today. Today, Philips strive as multiple companies, which they have spun out, NXP, ASML, etc. But I think they continue to transform. But I think Eindhoven has rejuvenated, has transformed. But what about in Singapore? I think in Singapore we see ourselves through the transformation that we have seen for ourselves in the last 50 years. And you know, in the last 50 years, we have moved from, you know, a country whose GDP is less than $1 billion to what we are today. We have transformed ourselves through industrialization, through going through high technology. We invested in R&D. And today we are on the cusp of a new S-curve as we see it. Today, of course, we worry because we do not know what the future is for us. Very much like what Eindhoven continues to explore. So as a start to this conversation, I thought, you know, I should ask Mayor how he sees things for us in Singapore. You know, sometimes, you know, when you look at ourselves, we become very myopic. You know, I can see the transformation in Eindhoven. So perhaps, you know, he could share with us what he sees in us, the potential that we have for ourselves going into the future as we are concerned about whether we will survive as a city.
Well, what you can see here, the first time I was here in 1992, and then I've been here a couple of times. What you can see nowadays, yesterday I was there in the Marine Bay, and it was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. There was a light show going on and that kind of things. And it was, well, the atmosphere was great. It was really great. You are doing a great job. Bring in the green, it makes it livable cities. Over the last couple of days, the last week I've been in Taipei, in Shanghai, in Nanjing, and now here in Singapore. By far, it's the best city of all. I think you are in the top 3 of the most livable cities in the world. And that is something you achieved. The question is, what are the threats of the future? You did something, I've been here before, to look, is there something to do on collaboration? It was very hard for me to find something, because we are a high-tech region and a design, a creative region, but I couldn't find any connection about creativity. It was very hard to find something. And on high-tech, it was difficult as well. You got a lot of headquarters here. You got a reliable government, a reliable system on intellectual property and that kind of thing. That makes you great. You are doing great things, but it's more or less, well, not only, but it's mainly dominated by the harbor, the airport, and the service industry. And I think if you want to be more independent in the future, then you have to do something about your added value on your own. And that you not only rely on what the United States is bringing here, their corporates. So there must be something about self-shaping industry, that you can do things self, and that needs, therefore you need research, and therefore you need specific research, and therefore you need, of course, creativity. And the last point is something, I think we are very much advanced when you look to the design side. I spoke a couple of weeks ago with the director of the largest research institute in the world. It's Fraunhofer. And the manager director said to me, we as German, it's a German institute, Fraunhofer. He said, we improve cars year by year. But you are doing something different. You design, you make new cars, which we can improve year by year. So there's something about the Dutch guys, it's not only in Eindhoven, but they can look out of the box, and I think that's necessary. You did tremendous things. When I was walking there with the forest and seeing this light show, well, that's imagination. But it must be maybe a little bit more broader. This is Einstein. Einstein once said, imagination is more important than knowledge. And that's something that for Asian people, knowledge is so central. It's facts, figures, knowledge. But Einstein himself said, imagination is more important than knowledge, because imagination is bringing you in maybe possibilities of the future. And if you don't have an imagination, then you cannot give any added value to the knowledge that is existing.
Thank you. I think that's a very true observation. You know, we have been very good at actually working with multinationals. We have actually built Singapore on foreign direct investments. We, of course, see a great opportunity for us using investments made in R&D to move forward. But Singapore is a very small place. So, you know, we are a city-state. We have great ambitions. And we are very extroverted. So
I'm jealous.
We're quite happy to learn and quite happy to copy. You know,
But do you know why I'm jealous at Singapore?
Let us.
You only got one level of government.
Well,
we got 3 levels of government. Well, the energy that is lost by the friction between our national, provincial, and local government, it's incredible.
But that creates basically, you know, a groundswell of ideas from the bottom. Sometimes our people, you know, depends too much on, you know,
okay.
manna from heaven, you know, coming down. You know?
Okay.
Right. But clearly, you know, Singapore has invested, you know, last 25 years on research, and we have just announced our next 5-year plans. And we are quite extroverted and unabashed in terms of where we look for partnerships. We have great partnerships in Europe, America, and we seek continuously to learn and to adapt. And, you know, you talk about being adaptive, and clearly, you know, that's about survival. I see the adaptation, the transformation, evolution in Eindhoven. You know, now, you know, it's a thriving modern city. It was very exciting when I went there in the 70s, you know, because I was a young physicist working in that lab. Today, the excitement is different.
It's different.
You know,
it's different.
The transformation they've seen in Singapore in the last 25 years you visited us.
It's different as well, what you have seen. Well, I was here in 1992, and we were there already. We didn't call it Smart City, but we were looking there. I was a member of the Dutch Parliament delegation. You had a perfect system of ticketing for public transport system. You put a card in and it was coming out and it was stamped in the meanwhile, that kind of things. And it was a card you could use everywhere. We started with Siemens to do something similar, but we wanted to put too much on this card, on data. So it didn't went. And then the Siemens said, if you are going to develop a new card, then you have to pay 500 million euros, guilders at that time. So it blocked our development for a long period. But you were very much advanced by implementing new technology. The way, and I think, well, I'm really were thinking about the last days of when I was in China about Maslow. You know Maslow, of course. And then I thought, what do I see? When is creativity coming in? And it's necessary to get to see the new challenges and give the right answers. But, well, in the first place, Maslow was talking about food and shelter, about safety, and then something with relatives and family. And, well, in the end, there is something on a high level of development that creativity is coming in. But it's necessary. The world is so complex now that if you are not creative anymore, then you will not solve the challenges you are facing, the problems you are facing.
You know, I could go on conversing with Mayor Van Gijzel, but I think, you know, this is supposed to be a Q&A as well. So, you know, I have to talk to him because I was told it's a panel of two, him and me. But, you know, really Q&A involves all of you. And, you know, I'll be most happy, you know, to take
we make it horizontal.
We make it horizontal, right? You know, so, yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I will make 3 observations on your presentation. Hopefully you can delve a little deeper into that. And I have one question for you. The question is very simple. You mentioned all the, well, A plus B, all that, right? Uber and all that. Is there any instance of a platform or entrepreneur that actually manages and runs healthcare without owning a single hospital bed? That's my question. 3 observations. You're right. Darwin never says survival of the strongest. Only business people say that. He actually says survival of the fittest. Fittest is different from strongest, and you use the word adaptive. Right? So I want you to say a little more about that. Second thing is, I think your advice to Singapore is probably very apt at this point because we just came out with Budget 2016. Hopefully it's going to be a take-off from the last 50 years. We have been doing very well based on this philosophy of importing best practices from the world. I think those days are over. We have to look at the next practice from Singapore rather than best practice on outside. And the third one is a comment about data. Wise advice from you. My own little mind tells me nobody should own anybody's data. Data should belong to all of us. So I'd like to hear a bit more from you. Thank you.
There are quite a lot of questions.
3 questions, I think.
Yeah, well.
Right. Going backwards, one on data. Well,
with the data, we are doing some field labs. And it's very, well, when we want to have the support of the people, then they must be sure that the data is not going around. So we always say the data are owned by the people themselves. But it's rather complicated, but not all, because not all the systems are looking, well, are providing a system that you can protect these people. But we try to do, this is a rather principal one, because otherwise it can be misused. Although, you know, it's good. I'm here the only one who is using a BlackBerry, I presume. Who is using here a BlackBerry?
no one.
No one. Who is using here an iPhone? Okay. Who is using here a Samsung?
Android.
Okay. Do you know why I'm using a BlackBerry?
More secure. Your data is more secure.
What you did is, when you bought your cell phone, there is a manual, and in the end they say, do you agree? But you didn't read it. You didn't read it, and you agreed. There is a line, and it's saying, all the data here in this cell phone owns me as a company and not you as a user. You paid for it, and you gave them all the data. And the only cell phone manufacturer that is giving the data to the user is BlackBerry. Nobody can get my data. But when I use iPhone or when I use the Samsung device, it's somewhere in the cloud. They do have it. So we are talking about privacy, and that we want to, but you are not protecting your own data even. So we have to, and you were not aware about this. No, but not all of them. Who knew this already? That the data are going to the companies. Okay, not all of you. So they said something, they give their data away. And these companies are doing it somewhere in a line, and then you undersign it. So it's a very important point, but be careful yourself.
Second question, going backwards, is about being adaptive.
Yeah.
He wants you to talk a bit more about adaptive.
Yeah.
I think,
Well, because of the complexity in society, we have to know that we have to find out what is a proper way. How can we change society in a way that is successful? What I told you about A and B, we do not know what is from A to B. You agree with it. So we are going A and then war and then a failure. What is adaptive is take over what is successful and try to find out and learn from each other. If I do not want to learn from another, then I will learn nothing. There's always more knowledge outside of Singapore than inside of Singapore. I'm sorry, but it is true. So there's more to learn from outside of Singapore than inside of Singapore. And the same in my city. So we have to learn from each other. And the other one is, when it's going like that, and you only want to have successes, then it will be impossible. So it's this way of being adaptive, accept failure going on, that is adaptive as well. If a society, and this is a real sensitive point I brought up in China as well as in Taipei, all the representatives of the governmental side are saying, we may not make mistakes because the people don't accept it. And that was for me the reason to explain on the speeches there, on the congresses, to tell if you don't accept failure, then you will never find future. And I asked the people, who knows what will be the future within 5 years? None of them raised their finger. So I said, and why do you expect then that the governmental representatives know about the future? They can't know it either. So we have to find out together. And there is something, you are doing a great job, but there is something about when you look to Singapore, it's about being adaptive. It's about not only vertical, but making it horizontal. It's about creativity. There are things that are sensible, but you have to figure out how you are going to deal with it. We try to figure out. We don't have the exact answers, but we know we have to do it another way around. And you are more attractive for collaboration when you got an open-minded attitude where we can collaborate. So when it's a closed attitude, it will be difficult. You will. I want to share. When there is cooperation, I want to share, not only bring, but I want to learn from you as well. So when you talk about collaboration, it's always mutual. It's always from both sides. And that you have to find out. So, well, these are with being adaptive in the world, collaboration, and that kind of things are there involved.
I think the final question is quite interesting. It says, Airbnb, the biggest, hotel operator without hotel room assets. Uber, the biggest taxi company without owning it. Can you run a healthcare company without owning beds?
Yeah.
I think so.
There is something special going on. I don't know, are you familiar with the Singularity University? The Singularity University is in Mountain View. It's settled by Peter Diamandis and Rach Kurzweil, one from Harvard, the other one from MIT. They work for NASA there in California. And then they thought, wow, we got such a bunch of knowledge and we are doing so less with it, we have to do something different. So they started the Singularity University. The first settlement outside of the United States will be in Eindhoven. And it's very important for us because they looked on another way. I spoke with Peter Diamandis, and Peter told me that banks will not exist within 10 years. Imagine for Singapore. Banks will not exist within 10 years. So I called the CEO of ING in the Netherlands. It's a friend of me. And I asked him, Ralph, can you tell me, Peter told me that banks will not exist within 10 years. And then he said, it's not true. It will not even last 5 years. Because why should I pay the professor when I want to pay to you and you to me? What does he do? He's doing nothing as a bank.
Because I'm trusted.
As a bank, there's
I'm trusted.
yeah. But there is something, and you see it going very fast. So there will be a new way. You know the blockchain, probably?
Blockchain.
The blockchain development. Our national bank is going to work with a blockchain. Is anyone knowing about the blockchain? Okay, it will, but well, quite a lot of people. When I ask it somewhere else in the world, then they say, "Whoa, blockchain, never heard of." But you have heard about a blockchain. It will change the world rapidly. And the other one is about the hospitals, and that is what Peter told me as well. Rob, you must know that cancer will be defeated within 10 years, and we can do it. We can even do it sooner, but then the regulation of the national government is going to provide it. But what we do is, there is something, when a cancer cell, the first cancer cell is going to do something wrong with its DNA. And we want to get into the cell, but that's very difficult. So there is stuff that can detect this cell and defeat it. But it's not possible to get it into the nanostructure of the cell. But it's not far away anymore. So when we are there on that level, we just put it in your body, and it's preventive. It's going around your body for a long term, and then when it's meeting such a cell, it's getting into the nanostructure, and it's defeating, it's demolishing this cell. So it will be preventive, and the same thing will be more or less with heart and vein diseases as well. So when you think about hospitals, how many people will be in hospital when there will be no cancer and no heart failure anymore? That will diminish. Then it's about traumas and bone, breaking your bones and that kind of thing. But it will diminish the amount of people in hospitals. So this is really disruptive.
So there are quite a lot of interesting things. For all of you who do not know about blockchain, there's a very good book which is written by David Lee, Professor David Lee of SMU. So if you go and get a book, they'll explain to you about the replacement of the secured layer.
It will affect your life completely.
Yeah. So it's going to disrupt everything from insurance to banking, and there will be no need for real estate agents, no conveyancing lawyers and all this, right? Right. About data, it's not necessarily about personal data. It's actually sometimes agglomerated data that's useful. For example, meteorological data is very useful for us knowing when it's going to rain. And if we know the travel patterns of people when it rains, we will know how to manage our transport, problem when it rains.
Okay, so maybe about the data. We use data, but then we analyze it, make them anonymous,
Yeah.
and then we provide them. So then it will be for general use.
Right. So quite a lot of interesting things. The world is going through a series of disruptions. Right, even for us in Singapore, one of the big concerns is that the whole world of production and consumption is changing. So how will it impact us? Right? Any more questions? Yes, please. Can you please state your name, affiliation, and then your question?
With permission, sir. Thank you, Prof. My name is Ais, just from Indonesia. Well, Your Excellency, I thank you very much for your spirited and eloquent presentation. Now, I noticed one thing in the first part, you mentioned about the open innovation, but you didn't mention the introductions as when you incorporate the open innovation concept without mentioning the closed innovation that your country have been using it for 2 donkey years, too long a time we're waiting for. And one disappointment on my part that, with regard to Royal Dutch Shell, for example, waiting for the green LNG from them not forthcoming. That's number one. Number two, Philip did not go beyond the Ultra 21C innovation. After Edison, they pick up from Thomas and what exactly it is. They're moving to healthcare now. So it's going left and right and everywhere. But no mention at all with regard to Unilever. So the question is that you can't go into Netherlands without knowing those 3 fundamentally. So what do you have on the question of your priority list for collaborative partnership that you talk about? Do you have anything in mind specifically that you think that you can enlighten us? Moving to 21C, real 21C, not the kind of yesterday's innovation, not about replicative innovation, demand innovation, but original innovation that you have in mind that you can extend us. Thank you.
Well, for example, we are working together with our Canadian friends on specific things. They are working on quantum computing. And it's rather complicated, quantum computing, and it's expensive to do research on it. So we are working together with them, and they are working with more countries as well, because you cannot do this kind of very expensive research on your own. We have to share it. That's one. We are doing it. But it's the Parameter Institute. You can look on Google. It's the Parameter Institute in Waterloo. But they do something that is more significant for me as a mayor. They say if we want to have people to understand, well, quantum computing, and it's quite difficult. They explained it 3 times to me, and I cannot explain it to you. And well, there is they told me if you understand it, then you don't understand it. It's something special as well. But it's so complicated. But they say they made a curriculum. They made something that is about another way of looking to our primary school and secondary school. And we are working together with them. We got brainport schools, which about another way of classical education. It's about other content. It's really about other content. And it's about going out to learning organization, learning negotiation. It's 3 O's, and there is another one. What? Entrepreneurial, ondernemen. Yeah, entrepreneurial. So even in the primary school, we bring kids out, but we are working together with the Canadian friends. What you say about Shell? Shell is a very traditional organization. Very traditional. It's a combination of Dutch and the Netherlands. I've spoken with Jeroen van der Veer, the CEO of the ex-CEO of Shell. Not so long ago, I think 2 years ago. I asked him, why is Shell not in solar energy? And then he said, well, this is in technology that is not, well, we are not used at it. This is being about smart and strong, but not adaptive. Shell will not survive when they are not going to transfer to een herwinbare energie, renewable energy, to a renewable energy system. And you can see they have a hard time over there. Unilever is something different. I think Unilever is rather adaptive worldwide. They make products, for example, the China market, baby milk and that kind of thing, wow. But they are really adaptive. They are really adaptive. The point is, and this is something that maybe because of my words, it can be misunderstood. Open innovation is a very closed innovation. Open innovation is not sharing everything. Open innovation is to pick out corporates who can share your research and development, but with another application. And you're not going to share them with all. For me, it's something different. When I talk about, as a mayor, about open innovation, then it's something more in the public space, not in the commercial space. I want to share everything with you. When you come to me, what I'm doing with designers and the projects we are doing, because it's public affairs. It's not hidden. It's not research that is hidden. So cities, on the city level, we can exchange a lot of experience with each other, and we can help each other. And the second question I have forgotten.
I think that's it.
Okay,
right?
okay.
Any more questions? Well, Mayor, okay, very good.
Hi, Mayor. Earlier on, you mentioned something about being the most knowledgeable city, but not earning so much from it. Could you share how you jumped from 13th place to 6th? Was it mainly legislation that was stumbling the business, money-making part of it?
You are the most intelligent city, but you are not making money out of it. There were other cities, other knowledge cities that were well ahead of you in terms of capturing value, which is a very interesting word for us, capturing value from the knowledge that your city creates.
This is a very good question. It's a very good question. The first thing is that I think that we had a problem with our internal market. So huge countries always have the advantage of an own market. So when there's always a sensitive, a point of sentiment that you want to buy the products of your own country. So this is a little bit difficult. But we didn't understand the world so well. So you have to go out. You have to organize. The other point is technology can be different things. Technology can be, well, you can say applications on a digital world, apps. We are having a very difficult part of the technological economy. We are doing the hardware. And for example, do you know ASML?
ASML.
Do you know ASML? Wow. Okay. It would have surprised me. You all got ASML. All of you. And not one, you got 10th of them. Here and at home. ASML is a machine. And with the machine of ASML, you can make wafer steppers. It's a wafer stepper. You can make wafers. Wafers is a wafer of all kind of chips. The chips, they were made of it, with thin lines. So more than 90% of the world production of chips are made with machines of ASML. ASML is in our city. So they make machines. They are new, now there's a new generation. They're working already 10 years on it. That's very expensive, very expensive. They are only burning money during these 10 years. When I'm in Silicon Valley, and I've seen them, a lot of them, there is a student starting with an application. Well, he's developing it a bit, there's investing in it, and a return on investment is 3 months later. And 6 months later, you got, well, even far more. And there's the next one coming. And maybe, well, from the 1,999 will collapse, but it doesn't matter because the other one. This is a short-term economy. We do have a long-term economy. That makes it very complicated to invest in. You must know, the investors must know what it is, what you are doing. But the most significant point is, and now I'm going to look to Singapore and to the Netherlands as well. We thought that we could be, in the Netherlands, a service economy. A service economy. So when you look to Amsterdam, it was the financial district in the Netherlands. It was financial, very important. It was the European center of the finance 20 years ago. Then the Central European Bank went to Frankfurt, and immediately it went down. And that's a problem. So when you look to the logistics and transport of the Rotterdam harbor, the added value is low. When I became a mayor, the containers coming in the Rotterdam harbor, and then they had to be brought to Germany. At that time, 8 years ago, the added value was 120 euros on a container. Now it's 60, because the chauffeurs from Poland and Hungary, etc., and the margins are going down. In the meanwhile, the machinery, this was half-sized. The machinery industry doubled added value. So you have to look, where is your added value? And that's something for Singapore as well. When I was in China, we discussed with the Chinese officials about their next 20 years program and the 5 years program. They said, we want more prosperity, we all want. They said, we want to have more livable cities, we all want. The question is, how do you come there? And then they say, we want to go from a manufacturing economy to a service economy. I would suggest them to do not that alone. Because added value is mostly found in something that is not here, it doesn't exist, and I make it. I make it with raw materials or reuse of materials, but make something new that is not there. That is the most valued activity in an economy, and you can add all kinds of services as well. What will be the source of income from Singapore the next 20 years? When the service economy is going down, when you do not have your own internal economic self-shaping industry, when the internal consumption is at the top, or more or less, what will be the fundament for the Singapore economy? That's, of course, is a question. I do not have an answer. We are struggling exactly with the same thing.
Right, I think what Mayor is sharing with us is basically the investment in deep science and how that translates to products that are seeing, capturing world markets. ASML machines are actually in all our foundries here, whether it's in UMC, whether in Global Foundries or Micron. So, they compete only with one other vendor in the world, so they dominate. So the thing for us is also to see how we can actually capture value from the deep science they invest in and develop products that can capture world markets. We have two companies that have world markets, Keppel and Sembcorp in terms of the world checkout rigs. With the oil price now so low, it's not really a good time for them. But, that is about, market dominance and, having products that are at the leading edge in technologies. Right. So for us, if you notice what, what we have been sharing in terms of with what we intend to do in the RIE 2020 going forward for science technology is about an emphasis on value capture. And that really needs us to work together with our large local enterprises, our SMEs, as well with our multinationals that are here. So today, working with Applied Materials, we have shipped out from here the first 3D packaging machinery, which is actually leading edge. Right? So that's a little bit about what we do in science.
And what are you doing with startups?
We try to learn from everybody else and try to capitalize on this third segment. We have incubator schemes, accelerator schemes. They see an interesting vibrancy now. If you go to Block 71 in iRaja, you see a great vibrancy which result in us actually putting aside 2 more blocks to promote actually. But I think for startups, we want to go beyond just the apps and the digital world, to go into engineering, to go into med tech, to go into clean tech, to see whether we can have a plethora of startups. That's why I went to Eindhoven to see the startup 2.5 years ago. Questions from the floor? Yes.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Professor. My name is Bernice Ang. I'm with a company, with a startup actually, Zeroth Labs. And I kind of resonated with what you both have been talking about with deep science and creating new knowledge and new methods for knowledge. So my team we're a bunch of anthropologists, data geeks, and designers, and we try to understand the complexities of urbanization. And so one of the things that we've been coming up against is the problems in cities are really wicked problems. It's whack-a-mole, right? You whack one mole and maybe another mole comes up. You don't know what may be the most root cause. So as a mayor, I can only imagine the difficulty of your work. So my question is, how do you navigate the complexity of problems that are not difficult in themselves, but they are difficult in their interconnectedness to other problems as well, and still somehow retain some sanity in your work?
So Mayor, she's talking about the complexity of cities and how cities are operate because there are many interconnected complex systems.
And how do you make decisions on what to spend money on first?
Well, you're right. And cities is something, a strange thing. I looked at my own city and I found out that nearly nothing is on the shape of my city. The educational organization is not on the shape. The companies are, they're all over the world. And when you look to the housing corporations, nothing on the level, even the care institutes are not on the size of my city. So it's difficult to get to understand why the cities do have these boundaries. So, but you have to deal with it because it's the local government, and we are a partner to provide our city as a playground on a responsible way, as a playground for all these stakeholders to be involved. And how do you organize this? Well, I said something about I do not always want to be in control. I've seen so many mayors that they are just by being stubborn and stick to their own vision that they block the development of their city. So this is something I just told you there is more knowledge outside of Singapore than in Singapore. But there is far more knowledge outside of my brain than inside. So I have to admit that people when you bring them together, then they are, most of the time, I can hardly imagine one example that they are really involved, that they really want to do something. You have to learn about it. There is a problem, and that's something I try to find out. I have to explain on this way. when we talk about these national governments, then, for example, when you look to Singapore, after your, well, this is already a society that's existing for a very long period, but after your independence, you make a set of regulations, a way of working in your society. It's well, wat is een spelregelkader? The rules of the game. It's the rules of the game. But for this horizontal world of castles, there are no rules of the game until now. So we have to find out. This is complex. This makes it double complex. But it's to the stakeholders to find out, and of course to us to make a kind of rules to, well, that people who are involved admitted that these are the rules. And I can immediately say, I see it in my own city. We do have a project, and it's about refurbishing a specific area. And what happened there were 8 or 9 stakeholders there working together. It went fine until one moment. One of them, he had an interest, a specific interest, and the others were not willing to give everything away to him. So, and then he went to the press, and that was written by the council, the city council. And the city council immediately asked questions to the mayor and the alderman, and I had to interfere top down. I didn't want to do so, because then you are going into the traditional way. But it's sensitive, it's difficult, but you have to name it. When you tell the people that it is going on that way, then they see it. I'm going to have, when I return to the Netherlands, I will have on the 11th of April an informal meeting with my council. And I'm going to tell them this and even more about their position. That there is, we say there is a democratic legitimacy for them, but there isn't anymore. And I'm going to tell them. They will not like this message. But it means that they have to think about it and that we have to find other ways. Because when only 0.1% is making the list of the candidates for the first, I told you about the 2.5, but only 0.1% is making the list for the parliament, for the local council, that they are making the programs for the city, that they are deciding making all the decisions. They cannot be true in a modern society. This society is not from the government. The city, and that's something I got deep in my heart. This is Aristotle. The city is from the people who live there. There is, when you look to the Greek, there is a great difference between Plato and Aristotle. Plato was a structured man. And as a philosopher, he said, the society is being divided in 3 layers. It's the noblemen, and they make the decisions. It's the people who do the trading, the trading people, and it's the slavery. They got nothing. They are dependent on you. And his pupil, only 1 generation later, Aristotle said, no, we are looking here on the wrong way. The society, the city belongs to the people who are living there. And then he comes to a very special election system. He said, when the city is from everyone, then everyone do have the obligation, when they are going by lottery, will be the lot will be that they will have to govern, then they will be implemented there. I have to explain this. Aristotle said, I don't want to have elections with names and that kind of things, because then you can say, well, vote for me and I promise you something. This is what we get everywhere in the world, and they are not doing, because they don't know what future will bring, and they will not give you what they promise. So you're a recruit, they say. What Aristotle said was, if the city belongs to all the people, then when there is a pot, we put all the names in it, and we take it out, and then we will have a representative, 30 people, a representative board, council of what a city is. And the obligation is that you have to do this. But you cannot promise before, because it's with a lottery. So this is something, read Aristotle. We were saying great things about society at that time. We are not doing this way. But it's the idea. Aristotle is by far the best philosopher, talking about how you govern a city from all the ancient Greek philosophers.
Well, a rather philosophical perspective from me. Okay, we are about 5. We are just gone past 5. I think we have to come to a close. But I thought I'll just elicit one more comment from Mayor. The transformation of Eindhoven is beyond city structures, beyond economic institutions or industrial institutions, beyond academia and government. In their statement, from what they come up with, is question of an evolution of a state of mind. Perhaps, Mayor, you can share with us what you mean when you say, this evolution of Eindhoven is a change in the state of mind.
Well, it's the state of mind of the council, of course, but it's the state of mind of the responsibility of all the stakeholders in the process, that they got another responsibility. You not can say to the government, okay, organize it for me. This is not the time. And the state of mind is, I wrote for the National Association for the Municipalities in the Netherlands a booklet about societal initiative. And this is something strange. What we see is that this is the third wave of emancipation in the Netherlands. The first was about the guild, who were independent of the noblemen. That's a long time ago. And then the second one is the moment that people get education and get the access of the writings and the readings and the access of information by radio and television. That's the second one, but it's going faster. Nowadays, they can do something that was until now only given for the government to do. It is organizing people on a way that they never could do before, and they can. So the society itself will change. It's a change of mind, and we do not know exactly the answer, but it will come up. It will come up. And this is, we have to find out, and I do not know, I told you before, I do not have all the answers. But that it's changing very fast, that's for certain. And we have to find out. And, you are struggling with different things, or maybe the same things. And exchanging between cities is in that way, very important. And maybe the last remark. When I look to the European Union, and I don't know if it's really, maybe it's more or less the same, but you know, Professor, more about this than I do. When I look to the European Union is an institute that lasts already, 70 years. It started immediately after the Second World War, because we don't want to have war anymore. And then it was called the Community of Raw Materials, like steel and that kind of things, and coal. And it was important to share it. And then it came up to be more, the United States of Europe. It was a working together between the national states. But what I see is that Europe is disintegrating on the borders of the national states. And that's very vulnerable, because Europe must be united. This is the only way to avoid war and that kind of things. And that's why I think, and I feel it as a kind of task for myself, to get Europe reunited based on the collaboration between cities. Because cities can work together throughout Europe. And maybe it's the same in Asia as well. I don't know.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for a very exciting and interesting talk. And, thank you all of you for, being attentive and sharing with us your questions. And thank you.
Yeah, please stay on stage. Thank you, panelists, for sharing your insights and experiences with us. We would now like to invite Dr. Healy Min, Research Director of CLC, on stage to present tokens of appreciation to the panelists and for the photo taking. Dr. He, please.
Thank you very much. Okay. I know.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We've come to the end of the lecture and we thank you for your participation. Do stay tuned to CLC mailers and website for more information on upcoming events. Have a good evening and we hope to see you again. Thank you.